Welcome back to the Ball Boys podcast. Let's go. We have an exciting one here. You got joined by obviously myself, Callum, being your host, and Big Michael. How you going, man?
Good, mate. Good to be here.
That's it. We got an exciting one. It's all going to be all about the draft today, and then we're going to talk about all of the trades that have happened in the past couple of days. And of course, today being the big draft day, there's been a lot of moves, a lot of things going on. So it'll be a good pod. We'll jump into the draft firstly. So, obviously going to this draft, a lot of people were saying it's the worst draft ever, worst draft in decades. No one knows what's going on. You got COVID in the background where it's like, oh, now everyone, you can't really train these guys properly. There's no contact. It's a lot of things going on in the world of basketball, which just kind of has affected a lot of these players. So to some degree, I feel a bit bad for him. But in some degree, there's got to be a lot of sleepers, a lot of steals in this draft. Just because no one really knows, no one could work each other out to the full potential that you usually could. So it's going to be a bit different. What's your overall take on the draft?
Look, yeah, it is a weird draft. I think like every draft I can remember in the last 3-4 years, there's been a clear number one, or it's between two guys, and it's like no question. And I guess there is the three, but I feel like they're not at the same level we've seen in other drafts. I wouldn't be surprised if there's no superstar that comes out of this draft.
Yeah, and to some degree, I do agree with you. I kind of rate the best prospect being maybe like a B+. And you usually want your best prospect to be an A, kind of thing. And if you have an A+, that's obviously like a Hall of Famer kind of thing. So, yeah, we'll see how we go. Well, I'll ask you the first question would be, if you were the GM, you were the Timberwolves, and you had to pick someone, who would you take at number one? Who was your best prospect?
Well, I think Anthony Edwards, with what the Timberwolves were working with, was the right number one pick. I think he fits with their pieces. He's got a lot of upside. He's probably got the safest superstar route to being a superstar. I think he's the most likely. But I would say I think LaMelo Ball's probably got the highest ceiling out of everyone. But I think like the chances with the maturity and whatnot of that all working out are pretty slim.
So you're saying we'll take Timberwolves off the table then. If you could just select anyone as like whatever team you want, just as I want to get the best prospect out there, would you take Anthony or would you take LaMelo Ball?
I'd risk it. I'd go LaMelo Ball.
You'd be taking LaMelo. Interesting.
I'm getting a 6'8" point guard that's going to come into the league and be one of the best passers in the league from the.
Oh, that's arguable. I don't know about that. But no, that's a good take. I don't mind that. I personally am on the fence of Anthony Edwards. I've never been a big LaMelo Ball fan. He came out to Australia and he was just kind of handed a team and was like, do whatever you want. And he showed some good signs. Like, don't get me wrong, he's got a real good dribble. He can beat a lot of people off the dribble. There's some of those highlights where he like made that guy fall over twice, which is hilarious. You don't see that happen every day.
Yeah.
But I don't see it really translating that much to the NBA. And the fact that his defense at this point isn't really there at all. I understand he's like 6'8", and it could, if you get the right coach to kind of hone him in, there could be some potential there. But I've never seen that effort. He's always just being a bit of a spoiled kid, kind of handed stuff. And to some degree, that isn't always excel in the NBA. I don't know. I just don't see it. Even what you said there, he could be like one of the best passers in the NBA. He'd be in terms of like highlight reel, yes, he'll be like one of the best. But if you look at maybe turnover to assist ratio and things like that, I don't think he would be up there. So if you take all that into consideration with his bad shooting, I understand, as I said before, he was given a green light, shoot when you want. But he shot pretty poorly. It was in the low 40s in an Australian league, which is a lot worse than the NBA.
So did Anthony Edwards. A lot of the issues with LaMelo Ball, Anthony Edwards has had as well. There's so many questions on his maturity. He's not like an active defender. He's a bit of a liability in defense in a bad college team, and he shot like 29% from three in college.
Yeah, look, that's fair enough. They are actually very comparable.
Yeah,
I'll say that they are very comparable. If you look at their frames as well, you can say obviously LaMelo is taller, longer, but Anthony Edwards, he's just a unit. He's built. He's a big boy. I kind of who would you compare Anthony Edwards to?
He's a smaller James Harden. He's like that running back frame of just like a brute that can get in the lane. Obviously, he's got like a 45-inch vertical or something ridiculous.
Yeah.
But he thrives off getting into the lane and forcing contact against these guards where he's just too big for them. It's just he's 6'3", so he's a little undersized. But yeah, probably a small James Harden.
Small James Harden. Not as crafty, obviously, with the ball, but you'd like to think that his handles could come along and he could mature with that. I think it's a great fit for the Timberwolves overall. As you touched on, LaMelo wasn't the best fit for him. Having a backcourt with LaMelo and D'Angelo Russell,
giving up some points.
That's like what 120 points a game on average on defense. I think you're going to give up. So, I think the clear option for them was to go Anthony Edwards just in terms of fit. The Timberwolves have been losing for a long time now, and at some point you have to turn it around. Otherwise, you're going to lose Cole Anthony. So I think it was the best option for them. As I said before, I think it was the best prospect. If I was taking a pick, regardless of the team, I'd be taking Anthony Edwards. I think he's got the potential to be pretty special. Still probably only, as I said before, a B+ kind of rating. But look, prove me wrong. He's a young kid. I'd love to see him go out there and just, absolutely kill it in a few years from now. But he's a solid build. I think he'll be pretty impactful from the get-go. So we'll move on to the second pick, James Wiseman. What's your take on James Wiseman?
Wiseman's such a weird prospect because he was unquestionably the number one high school player of this age group, and then came into college with all this hype, and then shut down college after 3 games or something. So we've got such a small sample size of him. But this was, I think, in everyone's eyes, the right pick. If they're not going to trade it, you take Wiseman. It fills the need that they had. I think throwing into a core with the likes of Draymond Green and Klay Thompson, Steph Curry, these veterans that have done it before and can help him, I think it's such a good environment. I'm actually probably the most excited about Wiseman out of all the rookies in the draft class to see what he will do.
Yeah, well, he's on a good team, obviously. So we'll see how that transpires. I know what you mean. He's a big boy. 7 foot, 7'5" wingspan. He's athletic. He's pretty built already. I mean, he could put on a bit more weight, but in terms of coming out of the draft that big, he's got the body for it. So you can pretty much say with confidence that he's going to come in and make a pretty good impact straight away. And I mean, look, a center is what Golden State needed. Who was even their starting center this year? I don't even remember. They had Pascal. He was more like a power forward off the bench.
Maybe Marquise Chris. I don't know.
Yeah. Marquise Chris played a fair bit of minutes for him, but I guess he's more a power forward too.
He's a power forward.
Weird. It was a weird team. They're obviously trying people out to get contracts and prospects, I guess, for this season. But I think it was a good pick. I don't hate it. I think he definitely has some potential. Could they have traded the pick? Yeah, seems like there wasn't a whole lot out there.
It doesn't look. Yeah, I don't think the fact that the top 2 teams were kind of shopping the pick voiced that it wasn't a valuable pick. So there's not going to be this huge demand from other teams to come in and get 1 and 2. So it was a pretty tough pick to trade.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, look, all the big moves kind of happened beforehand. And even some of the trades out there didn't really make sense for them to begin with either. So I think it was a good pick. They need a center, and then hopefully you got a building block for the future now as well. So good work by Golden State. I think if they took anyone else, it would have been a bit of a question mark as well. I mean, if you take LaMelo, I don't think he's going to fit. I mean, he's being compared to D'Angelo Russell, and obviously that didn't work.
No.
So that wouldn't have worked. Otherwise, it's a bit of a drop-off after that top 3 in terms of, where people think...
Superstar potential.
Yeah, in terms of potential, there is a bit of a drop-off. So it was a pretty clear option for them, and they did a good job, so... Good work, Golden State. You have a pretty good building piece for the next few years. So next time we have touched on before, but the third pick was of course LaMelo Ball to Charlotte. I guess we've spoken about what we think he can be. You think he can be one of the best passers in the league? I'd slightly disagree. I think he'd be a highlight reel for sure. I think he could be a good fit with Charlotte. Though, what's your thoughts on him playing in Charlotte?
I think Charlotte will be stoked to snag LaMelo because not only is he a great prospect, but he's like a celebrity already. So they're a small franchise team. He's going to sell tickets, which a team like Charlotte, who's just lost Kemba, needs. I mean, yes, their best 2 players are guards, but it's Terry Rozier and Devontae Graham, so it's not like they're locked in. They can move one of those pieces. So I think, they'd be really happy to snag LaMelo at 3, and he can have the keys to the team straight away and be an exciting prospect.
Yeah. Yeah, I think he will be a reasonable fit because, as you said, I mean, Devontae Graham and Terry Rozier being your 2 building pieces aren't the best to work with. So
No.
definitely an upgrade in terms of the future, in terms of what they can be moving forward. So hopefully it works out well for them. The one thing it could bring for everyone is the showdown of LaVar Ball versus Michael Jordan. Could finally happen. Maybe we'll see some one-on-ones. We'll see two undefeated players. Maybe in the one-on-one go head-to-head. So.
Finally learn the true GOAT.
So, that's great news. Good stuff for the Charlotte Hornets. The 4th pick ended up being Patrick Williams. Bit of a surprise pick here. He wasn't drafted to go this high. He was some people had him obviously in top 10. I don't think many people had him in not the top 4. Maybe a couple might have had him in the 5, 6, 7 range. But bit of a surprise pick by the Bulls. They were in need of a wing. So I guess that's why they did do this, because of the injuries they've had with Otto Porter Jr. He's had heaps of injuries now. He was meant to be their starting small forward. He isn't even the best player to begin with. So I guess they're just hoping they can just kind of insert him. He's very young. So there's potential there. But in terms of what he has displayed, it's obviously not a lot. He's projected to be a good 3-and-D combo forward. I think the jury is totally still out for him. So it's kind of like it's a full-on... I guess if you're the Bulls, you're like, I think he's got the best ceiling. That must have been the angle they're going for here. It's a strange pick. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, he sort of came out of nowhere, started climbing draft boards over the last week. But no, I'm not a fan of the pick at all. I think he's a good player, but if you've got the 4th pick, you've got to swing for the fences. I don't care. Like, Bulls are so far off even a playoff team, I reckon. And so don't draft on where does he fit in the team? You take the best player. And I think there's players like Killian Hayes, Denny Avdia, even Tyrese Halliburton that have the potential, even if it's not likely, to become all-star players. And Pat Williams, sure, he has a bit of potential, but I think you can aim higher. I think this would be a good pick if the Spurs somehow lucked out, or some decent team lucked out and climbed the lottery higher than they need. Then you pick for what you need. But when you're the Bulls, just take the best player.
Yeah, well, I guess if you're on their side of the fence, maybe they thought he was the best player. Maybe they're like, you know what, I think he's got the best ceiling. Maybe they didn't, particularly love the players that you did mention. So the jury's still out on it. I think personally it was a bit questionable. You probably could have traded down for it. If you really wanted to, you probably could have made a move and try to get a different asset. So from that aspect, there's a bit of a loss on the Bulls' end there, potentially. But I mean, look, if you're looking at it right now, I'm looking at the ESPN rankings. He was ranked 9th. So for him to go 4th is a bit of a jump. You probably could have traded down and try to get another asset.
I'm sure Knicks would have offered him something stupid if they wanted to go down to 8.
Oh, the Knicks were sold and topping, but we'll get into that a bit later. We'll move on to the 5th pick, Isaac Okoro. He's a good pick. Once again, a small forward. A good prospect. Good physical tools for an NBA wing, which is his main drawing card. He's long. He can defend. Can't really shoot. It's probably his biggest knock, but he can defend, and he's got a pretty reasonable basketball IQ. So what's your thoughts on Isaac Okoro?
Yeah, look, this one, the next one, Okongwu, are both similar to my opinions on Patrick Williams. I think all 3 teams could have aimed a little higher. They're all safe picks, and I'm not knocking the players. I think they're all gonna be decent role players in the NBA. But when you're picking 4, 5, 6, I think you can sort of swing for the fences a little more. I do get that probably the 2 best prospects on the board were point guards, which Cavs are slowly collecting too many of. But I would have gone Obi Toppin or maybe Denny Avdia, whoever you prefer out of that at this pick. I think they both have higher ceilings than Okoro. But I do think he's going to be a very useful role player in his NBA career.
Yeah, I'll say with Okoro and with Patrick Williams, I think they fall into the same boat of GMs and I guess scouts out there being sucked into, this is going to be the next Kawhi Leonard. He can't shoot, but he can defend. And it's just kind of like, yes, that worked for the Spurs. They're one of the best development coaches, or I guess, some teams in the league. And yeah, look, Kawhi matured to be not only multiple defensive players of the year, but also an absolute beast on the offensive end. You can't, like, it's annoying that teams just think that, like, oh yeah, we can just kind of make this person into that. And that's exactly what's happening. That's why these players have gone 4 and 5, in my opinion. They're trying to do that. It kind of reminds me a bit of, you look a few years back, you look at Josh Jackson, who went so high in the draft, and that's what it can end up being. You got someone like, not as good of an example, but Michael Kidd-Gilchrist went, like, was it number 2 in his draft?
2 or 3, yeah.
And it's like, oh, his defense, we can bring along his shot. His shot was terrible, and probably, obviously, was not recoverable. But I feel like it's really such a hit and miss for these guys, and if you're going to draft them at the 4 and 5 spot, I think you probably want a bit more faith in what you're getting. So, yes, that there's a ceiling, and it's a weird draft to begin with, but I think they've really been sucked into that category of, oh, it's the next Kawhi Leonard, and the odds are it's not going to end up like that, and a lot of these fans are going to be disappointed for such a big asset.
Yeah.
So, that being said, I actually don't mind Okoro. I prefer him over Patrick Williams, personally. I don't think Patrick Williams has really proved much at all. Isaac Okoro, I think he'll be serviceable. Like, he'll be a good role player to begin with, because he's really good and he actually plays a lot of effort, which I do actually quite like about Okoro. He's a big, he can be a bit of an energy guy. So everyone needs that. If he can get a bit of a shot, I think he could be a really good player. So I can see the ceiling, but 5, it's a weird draft, but yeah, look, 5 could be a bit high. And
aim a little higher. Dream a little bigger, Cleveland.
Yeah. Yeah, what do you think of the pick for Cleveland? Do you think it's a good fit?
I mean, like, there's no fit with Cleveland.
I mean, they were playing Larry Nance Jr. at small forward for periods of last season, so
I like it.
At least they've got Okoro as an
he is a little undersized, Okoro, because he can't handle this. You can't really play him at the 2, but he's only 6'6".
Well, you need a true point guard if you have him at the 2, yeah.
But they already have the 3, don't they? They have Colin Sexton, Garland,
and they got Garland. Yeah, they're 2.
I guess
point
don't
guard
have 3.
prospects.
They're 2.
Who they've been playing a bit of combo guard with, who I think is a terrible backcourt. Cleveland, what are you doing?
Shocking. Yeah.
You should try and I don't know what they're going to do, but interesting. They did need a small forward, and they're trying to shoot for the fences here. So
get Denny Avdia.
Look,
why did he drop so far?
We'll get to Denny. You're obviously pretty high on Denny. We'll move on to the 6th pick, which was Onyeka Okongwu, who was the big center, defensive specialist. He's being compared to Bam Adebayo on a lot of draft boards. I will say that he is in no way the offensive threat that Bam is. He's obviously athletic, but he is not that great passer that Bam is. Defensively, I think he's great. He can switch. He blocked a lot of shots. 3.5 blocks per 40 minutes, which is pretty good stats.
That's good.
He also, in 40 minutes, also averaged 1.6 steals. So very good counting stats for your per 40. That's what you're drafting here. You're trying to draft a center who's very much the modern NBA center, which I guess every team does want. What's your thoughts on Onyeka?
Yeah, I don't hate it. I think, first, can we address NBA media? Stop comparing players to Bam Adebayo. He is such an anomaly. No one is like him.
I said it before. He's one of the best. Like, try and pick 5 better athletes in the NBA than Bam. He's like an absolute freak athlete.
Yeah. So he's not Bam Adebayo. You're not getting him, unfortunately, Atlanta. But yeah, I don't mind it. There wasn't a lot in this draft for Atlanta when they were picking in terms of pairing it with Trae Young and where they're going. So getting he's going to be a very solid defensive forward, which is going to help their team. It looks pretty certain that they're trading Collins, so I don't really know where that team's going. But it's a safe pick.
You reckon they're trading Collins?
I think so. I think he's not a max player, but he's going to get the max from somewhere, and I think Atlanta aren't keen to pay it.
That's fair enough. And that, look, what about the fit with Clint Capella? Interesting fit between these two guys.
I think Capella's destined to just sort of jump around team to team as a trade chip. That everyone sort of thinks like, yeah, he's a good player, but no one really wants him.
There was like a month this season where he was putting up almost like 20 rebounds a game.
I know. He was in my fantasy team.
Yeah, he was smashing.
He was valuable to me. He's just not valuable to NBA teams.
Yeah, like a lot of people are saying Okongwu could, instantly be a pretty good asset for a team because defensively he's there. If you don't plug him, if he's not a big piece of your offense, that's fine. You can let the other players be offensive, and he can just pick and roll, whatever. So he's gone on a team where they've got the bigs. They got John Collins, they got Capella. So maybe there will be a trade, as you touch on, in the future. Clint or Collins could be on the move. We'll see. I still like Okongwu. I think, as I said, he's a perfect fit for this day's NBA for a center.
Yeah.
So he'll have a good career. Surely, like defensively, that's whatever it needs. Someone who can switch, block shots. If you can develop a bit of a 3-point game, even better.
Yeah.
So I think there's a good ceiling there. He's a good pick.
Yeah.
I don't hate it at the 6th spot.
There wasn't much for him at 6.
Yeah, I think it's a good fit for that team. Like you're not going to get a point guard at this point. Like you look at the next prospects we're going to go into. I think this is a good pick for Atlanta and what they have. So good work, Atlanta. We'll move on to 7. Killian Hayes, the point guard, the Frenchman. You're pretty high on Killian Hayes, aren't you? What's your thoughts?
Well, Mitch is really high. I think he's good. I actually think Halliburton was the better point guard prospect.
Interesting.
In the draft, but I mean 6'5" point guard, long arms. He's a bit slow for me for when I see him. Like he's got a nice handle, he's got some nice hardened step backs in there. So I think the offensive game's there. It's not a finished product, but it's the pieces are there that it will develop into a good offensive game. He looks too slow to me when I watch his highlights.
Yeah, I don't think he's too slow, but I think a good comparison for him, which I guess what I compared LaMelo Ball to is actually D'Angelo Russell, and Killian Hayes is so left-handed. He's just so left-handed. He's pretty much D'Angelo, but with a couple inches, really. He's 6'5", he's bigger. I think D'Angelo's a bit smarter as well. The knock against Killian Hayes is I don't think he quite has the basketball IQ yet. I understand in the French league and in that Euro Cup that he played in, he was actually putting up a good amount of assists, but it was also turning over the ball a lot. So if you look at the actual ratio for assists to turnovers, it actually wasn't good. So that's the knock to him. You'd probably, if you're gonna look at the positive point of view, he's putting up assists and hopefully he can develop that and take care of the ball a bit better. So at the number 7 pick, I think that's just kind of where he fitted. He's going to the Pistons, who you can say they need a point guard. Who even was their starting point guard? Honestly, I don't even remember. It's such a trash team.
They're
Pistons fans.
Weirdly not in full rebuild. They're still got
they obviously
Blake
have
Griffin,
Reggie, but he's gone. So look, Killian Hayes, he'll get minutes. Hopefully, they can develop.
If he turns into D'Angelo Russell, which I think is a good comparison, I think Pistons will be stoked with that.
Yeah, I mean, look, D'Angelo made an All-Star game, I believe. So.
No, he's a great passer. He just can't play defense.
Yeah. So the jury's still a bit out on him. I think he definitely needs a bit more development. I know Mitch is really high on him. I will say that Mitch was a big fan of Killian Hayes. I've even heard Mitch say he'd take him with the number 1 pick. We get his take maybe later on. I think that's a bit
controversial.
I wouldn't rate him that high personally. Even in his projected role, he's saying he's going to be a big playmaker, but. Look, as I said before, he actually does turn over the ball a fair bit. And turnovers cost your team because that's pretty much it's the most efficient way to score is in transition. So, hopefully he can mature. As I said, it's a strange draft. We'll see what he ends up being. We'll move on to number 8, the New York Knicks. I'll let you take the full handle on this. Obi Toppin gets drafted by the Knicks. What's your thoughts?
I was real mad when it happened. Yeah.
What?
I don't want another power forward, weirdly enough, in New York.
You don't want another power forward?
I think we actually have enough. I don't know if the front office agrees with me, though. I don't hate the pick. I think I wanted Tyrese Halliburton, who I think is a genuinely good point. He's probably the most intelligent NBA player in the draft in terms of how he runs an offense. I think he's exactly what the Knicks need, because nothing I hate more watching the Knicks is just a bunch of players that take 2 seconds too long to pass the ball. So I was keen for Halliburton. Obi Toppin probably would have been my second choice if I couldn't have Halliburton here, because I think he's got a good shot for Rookie of the Year. I think he's going to come in and produce straight away. So in my eyes, worst case scenario, he turns into a valuable piece, whether it fits us or not, that we can trade for something. So it's not the worst pick, I think. And he's a New York native. It's a nice story. I'll see where it goes.
Is he from New York? I didn't realize that. Okay, well that is a good story then. I'm happy that's one of the positives you can take from it. Yeah. New York boy. I'll do a bit of a fact for you. Arguably your 4 best assets, not including Obi Toppin. Mm-hmm. And when I say that, I'm going to say RJ Barrett, Mitchell Robinson, Kevin Knox, and Frank Ntilikina are all younger than Obi Toppin.
Experience. Bringing in experience.
And I know this is a big knock. We heard Mitch say it on the last podcast. He's old. I understand that. I think it's a bit harsh to knock him just because he's on the older side. He was a really late bloomer. He was like 6'2" in high school and then he's jolted up. And if you look at his progression from his college each year and year, he does get a lot better. And from your end, as a Knicks fan, you're thinking, look, he can keep progressing. He can keep getting better. The one knock, I guess, is the defense side of things. Everyone's saying is his defense is his one big liability, which I think is pretty obvious.
Tom Thibodeau. Perfect ground for him to land.
Yeah, that's true. And I know, I think Tom Thibodeau actually, maybe it's a match made in heaven.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the perfect coach.
This is where it all turns around.
So I don't hate it. I've compared Obi Toppin to an Aaron Gordon who doesn't particularly play defense well. Nice. So if you think that's a good asset, sure. That being said, I do think he still has a bit of a ceiling.
I think he's got a higher offensive ceiling than Aaron Gordon's hit.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. And that's what I'd build off next. He definitely has a better ceiling offensively.
Yeah.
Totally. I think the ceiling for him would be like, 20 and 10 player. And he'd be good to watch. Like, he gets some highlight reel dunks. I'm not going to be surprised if we see him in the dunk contest. That's good for New York. New York, that'll sell some jerseys,
still exist,
right?
guys.
That'll sell jerseys. It's not like they're going to win now anyway. So you might as well make some more money for that franchise. Good work to the GM to sell some more jerseys. Good start. Obi Toppin, look, we'll see. I'm not gonna hate the pick. I don't hate him. I think give him a few more years. I'm not gonna be ageist like a lot of people are in drafts. I think give him a few years. Maybe he can be a good player in this league.
On that age thing, I think it's blown out of proportion. There's lots of 18, 19-year-olds get taken, i.e. Josh Jackson, that are out of the league in the next 4 years. Whereas Damian Lillard was the same age, if not older than Obi Toppin when he was drafted. He was a senior.
Yeah, they come in a bit later. Yeah.
I mean, they're still 22, 23. They're still very young. It's nice when it works out like a Devin Booker and a Jason Tatum where they're superstars by 22 and you're like, wow, I've got another 10 years of this.
Yeah.
But it's not. I wouldn't let it knock you away from a pick if he's a couple years older.
I'll put up the best case scenario. Obviously, a player came in a bit late into the NBA was Larry Bird. Oh, yeah. So do we see any Larry Bird and Obi Toppin?
Personally, no.
No. I just want to put it out there because maybe there are some Celtics fans that will listen and are a bit ageist, and I just want to say that. Let's not knock him for his age. Look, he's still young. He can bring it. All right, we'll go.
He's younger than you, Mitch.
We'll move on to the 9th pick, who you've touched on a few times. Denny Advigia? I don't know. Can you pronounce it for me? There we go, dude. I don't know.
I'm his number one fan, apparently.
Look, I've been calling him Denny. I think it's a safe bet.
Yeah.
He's a small forward from Israel. He's very young. He's meant to be pretty versatile, big, can play the power forward. Can play the small forward, can shoot. He needs to take strides in the defensive end. I think it's pretty clear. It's probably his one big weakness. But he's big enough. He can ball handle too. He can be pretty creative in the open court. So I can see the upside. I personally think Denny is a buster. I'm going to say it now.
Ooh.
I don't like him. I've seen some of his highlights. I think this could be a regret. He fell to 9. I was thinking he could go top 5.
Well, he was projected 4.
Yeah, I don't hate that he fell to 9. Actually, where he's landed, I'm not too mad about because I thought he could be in the top 5. But I think he's going to be underwhelming. I think worst case scenario, which is a very plausible scenario, is he becomes Mario Hezonja, who I will point out was a lot more athletic.
He dunked on Giannis, man.
So. That's my opinion. I don't really like Denny a whole lot, which is interesting because you've been speaking pretty highly of him. So I will say one other point. He's been an inconsistent shooter who converted only 32% and 58% from the free throw line, which is not very good.
Not a good sign.
And I will also say that's over a pretty reasonable sample size. 58% from the free throw line is not promising at all.
No.
And look, usually if you get those white guys from Europe, you want them to shoot, right? White man can shoot.
Yeah, they don't give you dunk contest athleticism.
Exactly. And that's one of the main reasons I'm looking at him, and I'm like, he's meant to be creative in the open court and reasonable ball handler for his size, but defensively, I feel like he's going to be terrible. And if he can't even shoot, what's the point of having him out there? Like, honestly.
I mean, what's terrible on defense? He's 6'9", he's pretty big. Like, he's bigger than Patrick Williams is. Obviously not the same athlete, but he's a big body. The shooting, I think, like, yeah, the stats aren't impressive, but it's pretty clear when you watch him, the mechanics are there. I think that will turn into...
Mario Hezonja has good mechanics, man.
Does he?
I'd say he does.
All right. Well, Mario Hezonja's... Look,
give me the positives of Denny. I've kind of trashed him a bit, but no, go for it.
I think he if it works, and like I do totally accept that it's a risky pick. I think it is like a bust or a work thing. There's no sort of in between with like a Nakora or Pat Williams where you're like, look, he's probably going to fit in the middle and he'll be a serviceable role player. Like there is a scenario where if Dia's out of the league, but I think there's also a scenario where you get like a crafty, slightly smaller Gallinari, which I think is one of the better outcomes in this draft. It's not a fantastic draft. If you could get a Gallinari in this draft, it probably is worth the fourth pick.
I don't know. I wouldn't compare him to Gallo just because you're looking at some of the things that people are saying, and one comment as well is he struggles to create offense from standstill. Gallo is great from standstill and he'd draw a lot of fouls, and then he'd be amazing from the free throw line, which is just nothing that Denny is. So he's like the complete opposite of all those things. So and I understand like defensively they could be the same height. Yeah, they look similar, I guess, as well. But like I don't see it for Denny. Well, he's obviously a very, very young kid, so I'm not gonna knock him. He could turn it around, but I'm not super solid. Yeah, I'm looking at ESPN had him overall fourth.
Yeah,
as the fourth best prospect, which I'm pretty surprised about. So well, like where did you think he was gonna land?
I was pretty sure he was gonna go to Chicago. 4.
Yeah, okay.
He was the odds-on favourite. I thought, yeah, because you're drafting on potential, really, when you're that high. And I think his ceiling is higher than Isaac Okoro or Patrick Williams.
Some people have been comparing him to Luka Doncic, and all of you can please be quiet. Luka Doncic is like a generational talent. We need it. It's like how people compare certain players to LeBron James. Like we shouldn't be doing that. Luka's almost averaged a 30-point triple-double, and I can guarantee right now Denny's not going to do that.
Hey, Luka's struggling from the free throw line too. Similarities.
Oh, well, he's not shooting 58% though, dude. That's like DeAndre Jordan.
Wait till MD gets to the league. That's all he's practicing between now and December 22.
All right, well, we'll go to the 10th pick. Jalen Smith. He kind of climbed on the board. ESPN's ranked him at 20th. So he is a big man, 6'10", a 7'2" wingspan. He's pretty versatile, and he can also hit the three. So he's kind of like he can play the power forward or the center, and he can stretch the court, which any team really needs. And he's pretty young. He played a pretty reasonable season, so I don't hate the pick at 10. I can see his potential there. What's your thoughts?
I actually love the fit for the Suns. They've sort of turned the switch with the Chris Paul trade. They're sort of more of a we're making the playoffs. We want to be contending in the next 2-3 years. They needed a power forward. He can shoot, so he sort of pairs well offensively with Ayton. He can still spread on that end. He's a great athlete and he plays good defense. I think he's a really great fit for Phoenix.
I'll say, what about the pairing with Ayton? You think they can work together?
I don't see why not. If he's already got a serviceable 3-pointer and they're going to want him to be the stretch four, so that's all he's going to work on. I think,
yeah. He shot 37% from 3, which is good. I'll give him that. Defensively, he probably isn't as mobile as what you want from a power forward. I think he probably fits the center role a bit better.
Yeah. In
my opinion. I think, which is interesting to put him with Ayton. I would like to see, in his rookie season, probably just to play a bit more off the bench and then have the backup center role and then play some minutes with Ayton because I think it'd be good for them to play together. But if he just plays about 20 minutes a game and plays the majority of backup center and plays some minutes with DeAndre, I'd be happy with.
Yeah.
Develop him. But to be honest, Phoenix really are like win now because they got Chris Paul. That is a win now move. You got D-Book, really, who's in his prime. Like
Whoa, that's an early prime. He's what, 23?
Well, he's the man, though. Like, he's already put up 70 points in one game.
Yeah.
He's a shooter. So because they are win now, I wouldn't bother with putting him as my starter. I bring him off the bench, try and just make him better of the next few years, and then, as I say, 20 minutes a game for Jalen Smith, I think would be more than enough. He might even drop a bit less than that, but I don't hate the pick. I think it's still pretty good. It's a safe bet. As I said, he's a player everyone needs. Big, who can shoot. You'd like them to be a bit more mobile, but you can get away with if you have a pretty good serviceable big that can shoot. So that's the top 10. That's really all we wanted to completely wrap up in depth, but we will point out a couple picks that I guess we'd say was a bit of a steal, or some players we want to mention that did kind of fall in the draft that are noteworthy. Who got picked by the Sacramento Kings? Your favorite team, Michael.
My boy Halliburton, who I wanted at 8. But yeah, I reckon that's a steal at 12. He's such an intelligent point guard. His jump shot is a bit weird. It's a bit like Lonzo-esque, where like it only really works from a spot up, and I can't see how it works on a dribble pull up, which you do need if you want to do the pick and roll at a high level. But in terms of, like, you're just getting a smart point guard that's going to run the offense well, and that's guaranteed. And he's 6'5", he's got long arms. It's just, at 12, that's a really good pick.
Yeah, it's a good pick. It's a bit of a steal. He was ranked 8th on the board I've got in front of me. He's a career 43% from 3, which is huge.
Yeah.
73% from the 3-3 line, so it seems pretty consistent that he will be a good shooter. Some players have shot 40% in college, and it did drop off in the NBA.
Well, I think Lonzo lit it up in college.
Lonzo was over 40% from 3, and that obviously changed when he entered the NBA. I don't think Halliburton would be... I think obviously he's not going to shoot 43%.
No,
but he'll be pretty good from that. And he's a big guy. He can guard. It's good to have a big point guard. It's good to have someone that can. If you have a point guard that's 6'5" with a good wingspan, he really can defend 1 through 3.
1 for 3 if he needs to. Yeah.
So it's a good player to have in your team at the 12 spot. Great pick. What about the fit with De'Aaron Fox?
Yeah, not ideal.
He can shoot at least. So
he can shoot. He can play off ball.
Yeah, so you can make him play off ball. They probably could actually work together. Now I think about it, just because he can obviously guard the 2 and the 3.
Yeah.
Preferably the 2. So maybe it could work. It's still a steal. Look, at 12, it's a big steal. So it could work by the Kings. That's something they've done right.
Hey.
In the not too distant future.
Nailing it.
One noteworthy player I wanted to bring up is my boys, the Miami Heat. Picked up good old Precious.
Yeah.
My Precious. He's a good versatile defensive player. So we'll see how he turns out. He was ranked 12th on the board I've got.
Ooh.
Second for his position. So some people were pretty high on Precious. He fell to the 20 spot, which I think is a big steal. So great work by Miami. I think he'll be very serviceable on defense already this year. He just needs to work on his shooting. Hopefully he becomes a really good kind of 3D role player is what you kind of look for.
That's definitely what they're trying to get there.
Yeah, and look, at the 20th pick, I think that's a pretty good sign. It's a good steal as well. So I think I can see him playing minutes this season for sure.
I think he's exactly what they needed. Just a serviceable role player that they can actually just chuck into that rotation.
Exactly. So good steal there. I guess some other note whether you could bring up RJ Hampton who dropped to the 24th pick.
And got traded.
And got traded as well, yeah. So he's on the move. Interesting. I mean, look, the board I've got him, he's got 15th, and he's gone all the way down to 24th. So, look, there's been... It's a weird draft where a lot of people are moving and changing. So, I think 3 years from now, we could do a redraft, and it could be completely different to what we have in front of us. So...
The Ball Boys thrive on that.
And
it's just content.
Right. More content for the Ball Boys.